Good afternoon. It's exactly 2 p.m. This is the Thursday edition of Market View. Thank you for tuning in. My name is Lungilele Makakula. South Africa's President Cyril Ramaphosa has opposed what he calls the unilateral higher trade tariffs imposed on his country by the U.S. U.S. President Donald Trump announced on Monday that he would subject imports from South Africa to a new 30% tariff from the 1st of August. It is the only country from sub-Saharan Africa that Trump singled out in his announcement, reflecting his strained relationship with Ramaphosa's government. In a letter to Ramaphosa, Trump said South Africa's trade relationship with the U.S. has been unfortunately far from reciprocal. In his response, Ramaphosa maintained the 30% tariff is not an accurate representation of available trade data. And on another one, U.S. President Donald Trump on Wednesday also threatened Brazil with a crippling tariff of 50% starting on the 1st of August. And according to a letter he sent to the country's president, we will have a discussion on these changes with in-house economist Sanellis Bia. But for now, let's go straight to our first story. Five small enterprises have each been awarded seed capital amounting to 10,000 Malangeni under SEDCO's Tlijange Business Initiative. This is after the 84 SMEs applied for participation under this competition, and the figure was brought down to 20, being afforded training and business advisors. The awarding ceremony was held at SEDCO's offices in Babane on Thursday.
The winners awarded are individuals running businesses in horticulture and hair braiding. For the 2025 Tlijange Business competition, SEDCO received 84 applications, whereby 37 were assessed. CEO of the Small Enterprise Development Company, SEDCO, Ketwe Mhlanga, says investing in the entrepreneurial future of Eswatini is key to empowering young people for economic upliftment.
We see your commitment. We see how you have grown strength, because being in business is not easy. And when you're an entrepreneur, it's a 24/7 exercise. It's not an easy thing to do. We appreciate the work that you do for yourselves, for your communities, and those also who you have employed. You are contributing to the livelihood of Eswatini. You are contributing in changing how our ecosystem looks like in Eswatini. So take pride in what you are doing. You are the youth, but you are the leaders of Eswatini when it comes to our future. We see you.
MTN Foundation Head of Corporate Services, Sibusiso Nhlego, says these young entrepreneurs need to be capacitated to take their businesses to their next level.
I was speaking to one of the entrepreneurs. I can see this product can actually go across Africa, across the world, to actually empower our entrepreneurs, for them to have the courage to say it's okay to bring an equity partner as long as you are properly advised and you are able to sign the necessary agreements so that the business can grow. Because you can see here is a business. All it needs is just 1 million Malangeni and a few networks. This product can actually go to Dubai. The market is no longer limited, to the community where you do your business. It's no longer limited to the city where you do your business. It's no longer limited to the country where you do your business, which means technology provides opportunities to the almost 8 billion people on the face of the earth, which means, we all need then to equip ourselves on how we can leverage technology to grow our businesses.
Tlijange Business beneficiary Tembisile Mafu appreciated the support, saying it enables young entrepreneurs to upskill themselves.
I'm going to improve the irrigation system in the farm because it's quite challenging. So some other parts of the farm were not properly installed with the irrigation system. It's very encouraging for us small entrepreneurs, so it will help us to grow the business.
The Tlijange Business competition has been ongoing for the past 8 years, reaching 140 small enterprises. Through strategic support, 150,000 emalangeni in cash has been disbursed to the different entrepreneurs over the years. For Market View, Notsele Sithole, Vumiko Sinzinisa, and Derek Msibi, Babane.
Following the Minister of Finance, Honorable Neil Rackenberg's pronouncement that government has settled all supply invoices using part of a $100 million loan, Business Eswatini welcomes government's effort with a concern. CEO of Business Eswatini, Inathi Dlamini, says some members have confirmed being paid by government, although others have not received their dues even after submission of their invoices to the government.
Yes, we did verify the information. We called the Treasury within the Ministry of Finance, and they did say they have paid everything. And indeed, it appears all the invoices that were at their disposal, they paid them. And then we then make a few phone calls to some of our members who advised us that it seems not all of them were paid. Now the question is, how did this happen? Okay, the first suspects obviously would have been the ministries. If the Minister of Finance says everything that was there in terms of invoices were paid, then where are the other invoices? And we'd like to say it out loud, we do suspect that various ministries are withholding some invoices within their drawers. And this is not the first time this has happened. It's been happening over and over and over again. And we would like to call upon all the ministries who happen to have invoices tucked in their drawers to please take them to the Treasury for payment. We have businesses out there now which are floundering, and some of them even are on the cusp of failing totally because of non-payment by government.
Right, and that's it for our business news. Stay with us. We come back with Sanellis Bia for a discussion on Trump's tariffs.
Eswatini TV has signed a code of conduct that is enforced by the Eswatini Communications Commission. We are committed to reporting news that is accurate, comment that is fair, and programming that does not amount to hate speech or the description of gratuitous violence or explicit sex. For any complaints of our programming, please contact us on 2411-9600 or email info@eswatinitv.co.za. You can also contact the Eswatini Communications Commission on 2406-7000 or write a letter to ECCOM on PO Box 7811 Mbabane. Email address is info@ecom.org.za.
Hi, I'm Golda. I work at the IMF. What is globalization? Well, think of it like a bridge between two countries. Now let's say this country is very good at growing flowers. It has the right soil and plenty of skilled farmers. And just across the river, that country loves flowers, but doesn't have the right soil to grow them. You can see where I'm going with this. With our bridge, trade has blossomed. This country makes money from selling flowers abroad, and that country can start new businesses and sell new products based on their newfound access to flowers. I mean, who doesn't love fresh flowers? Of course, it's not just flowers that can cross the bridge. It can be used to trade almost anything. Plus, there are pathways for investing, communicating, and exchanging ideas. And people can come and go too. Now, what does this have to do with globalization? Well, imagine bridges just like this, connecting countries all over the world, even countries on opposite sides of the planet. That's globalization. These bridges, these economic links, have made everything from food to electronics cheaper. And not just that, globalization has made the whole planet richer too, especially people in poorer countries. Over the past 30 years, 1.5 billion people have been lifted out of poverty. But this is only part of the story. While globalization has brought more benefits for more people than ever before, it's also true that not everyone has benefited from the increased wealth. For many people, it can appear the bridge is bringing more problems than flowers, and that the economy isn't working for everyone or every country. So what should we do? Well, the solution isn't to destroy our bridges or to throw out the rule book. That would leave us all poorer and less secure. So, do we maintain, rebuild, or redesign these bridges? Write new rules that help them to work better? Or search for new ways to ensure everyone can benefit? Probably all of the above. More than ever, we need international cooperation, countries working together, and the IMF working with its member countries to build the best possible bridges to get us to the future. That will not just be good for the economy, but good for people everywhere.
Welcome back. You're still tuned into Market View. Thank you for staying with us. U.S. President Donald Trump announced that he would subject imports from South Africa to a new 30% tariff from the 1st of August. Trump's decision is a huge blow to South Africa. The U.S. is its second biggest trading partner, and South Africa's automobile, farming and textile sectors had duty-free access to the U.S. market under the African Growth and Opportunity Act, AGOA. Joining us via a telephonic interview is our in-house economist, Sanele Sibiya, to help us look at the impact of these new tariffs from the White House. Sanele, very good afternoon and welcome to Market View. Thank you for joining us. Trump is trending as always. He has sent out letters to countries under BRICS, letting them off the tariff increase. Firstly, let's just get what is the global reaction to these changes by President Trump?
Thank you, Lungelele, and good afternoon to the viewers. So as always, President Trump is coming up with new movements and new shifts regarding those tariffs. So the mood on the global market is somewhat of a relaxed one, in the sense that I think everyone now understands that what President Trump wants is a deal, basically, rather than just to make good on those tariff policies. So there is a bit of apprehension, but coming from a standpoint of knowing that it might not necessarily have that much impact in terms of being implemented going forward. But it does bring about a lot to consider in terms of what happens if President Trump was to keep true to it. And it also does signify and signal the effect that we might not necessarily get back, say, to the 10% in terms of the tariff between South Africa and the U.S. So there are those considerations that the markets are mulling over, and the uncertainties actually just continues to grip markets as well as
Yeah, I mean, let's just move on to with what's happening between Europe and the U.S. There was progress there with talks between the U.S. and the EU, but he has also sent out a letter to the EU, also alerting them of tariffs. What's happening there between the EU and the U.S.?
Yeah, that's the tricky part about these tariff talks, because we know that there are talks between Japan and between the U.S. and almost all of those countries as well. But there are letters that are continuously going out. So that in itself signals that probably President Trump wants a more aggressive deal for the U.S. Probably there are things they are not agreeing to. And I would think that he's using this as a lever to ensure that he's able to get what he wants. Compared to really just keeping true to it. And if you look at the deal between the U.S. and Vietnam, if you look at the concessions that Vietnam has had to make in opening up quite a number of sectors to the U.S. economy, which I think is what President Trump is pushing right now to ensure that, the American companies get a fairer state of the pie and they are able to trade on an equal basis with quite a number of these countries.
Yeah, just moving back to South Africa, President Ramaphosa opposed what Trump is opposing here with the tariffs. Is this a huge blow for South Africa?
Firstly, Lungelele, what we have to understand is the fact that the tariffs, as President Ramaphosa would have it, somehow seem to be thumbsucked. They don't seem to be coming from a proper mathematical or econometric rationale with a better understanding of what it would mean and the impact on the U.S. economy and also on trading partners. And actually, President Ramaphosa points to the fact that it does show that what President Trump and his team are doing somehow seems not to signify or seems not to have a proper grasp of the magnitude of trade between South Africa and the U.S., which has been one of the major problems that we have been grappling with when it comes to these tariffs in terms of how the numbers were arrived at and also when you look at the magnitude of trade of trade. But then when you look at it in the face value of what would happen to South Africa should this actually come into effect, we do have those issues to deal with. The fact that we've already mentioned there's the automobiles that South Africa was exporting to the U.S. There's also the issue of the citrus. There's the issue of the avocados there. And then there's also an issue of what this necessarily means for AGOA. So South Africa may actually become quite a net loser in all of this should that the Trump administration continue with implementing those tariffs, looking at the way that, South Africa trades with the U.S. But we also have to underscore the fact that we've seen tariffs already being implemented on steel imports into the U.S., and that's actually affected exports from South Africa into the U.S. as well, and also the automobiles have also been affected when we saw that 25% tariff. So what this would essentially mean would be an expansion of the sectors that get affected by those tariffs, and that may not necessarily be a good thing for South Africa in the short to medium term, as they try to find better ways and the margins to actually just absorb all of these shocks. Because what those suppliers would have to do in this case, Lungelele, is find better ways to absorb this margin so that it's not passed on to the consumer. So there are those dimensions and those balancing acts that still have to be done.
Just lastly, Mr. Spear, before I let you go, there are so many reactions and opinions on Trump's decision, but President Trump argues that introducing tariffs will protect American businesses from foreign competition and also boost domestic manufacturing and jobs. Is he accurate?
Theoretically, that's the equal for 419 that we teach at university. That's what would happen theoretically. But practically, you've got to understand that there are supply side responses that need to be allowed the time to adjust and be able to actually work to the whim of what President Trump wants. And also, you have to understand that trade is beneficial in that we are able to shift trade to those areas of low cost so that we can export to the market where it would actually be a bit expensive to produce that commodity. So even if there is that shift, the chances are that even if the commodity is now produced within the U.S. market, it would then only be sufficient. It can only supply the U.S. economy. And also, you have to think of the issues to deal with global value chains, in that companies just shift production, different production processes to where it is going to be cheaper to get that process done so that they can maximize profits. Remember, businesses are in the business of making profit more than in the business of being patriotic. So we are not sure if these movements are actually going to get the desired result, Lumelele.
All right, thank you, Mr. Spear, for your insight on Trump's tariff decisions. Don't go anywhere. We come back with Sanile for today's market analysis.
Let me ask you something. What if I said we could all be more productive, that we could do more, create more, or earn more, without having to spend more time or effort we put into work? Sounds great, right? So how do we do it? How do we do more with less? For economists, boosting productivity is the trillion-dollar question. So what do I mean by productive? What exactly is productivity? Economists actually measure how many resources go into an economy and compare that to the value of goods and services coming out. And that's what's called total factor productivity. The better and more efficiently an economy uses its time and resources, the higher its productivity. Let me show you what I mean. What if I wanted to open a restaurant? What would I need? A budget, tools, some ingredients? Of course. You can't have a good meal without an experienced chef. Once we have those, my customers get a great dining experience, and my restaurant starts earning revenue. But there's so much more to running a restaurant than just good cooking. I have to spend time ordering ingredients, doing taxes, taking reservations, seating charts, property management, getting permits, renewing safety, managing, updating, hiring, and firing. Doing those things takes me time I'd rather spend making meals. Fewer meals means turning away customers and losing out on revenue. My productivity could be so much higher if I use technology to streamline those things. But I can go even further. Here in the kitchen, I can also use technology or hire someone to take over the routine tasks. So now I can focus on making the perfect meal. My kitchen, with all its fancy gadgets to help me out, isn't so different from how wealthy economies use technology, trade, or innovation to boost their productivity. But imagine I don't have these tools. That's a problem that many poorer countries face, and it's one that the IMF takes pretty seriously. Because without access to productivity boosters, they earn less, and so living standards remain low. There's no one solution. But we do know that investing in science, technology, and education does help our members to do more with less over the long term. It's investments in our future that'll make us all better off and give us more time to do the things we love.
Eswatini TV has signed a code of conduct that is enforced by the Eswatini Communications Commission. We are committed to reporting news that is accurate, comment that is fair, and programming that does not amount to hate speech or the description of gratuitous violence or explicit sex. For any complaints of our programming, please contact us on 2411-9600 or email info@eswatinitv.co.za. You can also contact the Eswatini Communications Commission on 2406-7000 or write a letter to ECCOM on PO Box 7811 Mbabane. Email address is info@ecom.org.za.
Welcome back, Sunny Lesbia. Thank you for joining us once again. With 6 minutes left, let's just quickly go through markets today.
Thank you, Lungelele, and a good afternoon to the viewers once again. So what we are seeing in today's markets, Lungelele, is, there is a bit of some positive mood that is just reverberating across markets, where we're seeing the likes of NVIDIA really just gaining quite a lot in terms of, improving their market capitalization and seeing that stock price going a bit up. So what we're seeing is the fact that markets seem to be shifting focus to, economic fundamentals, looking at how the economy is performing at present and how certain things are moving, considering that when you look at the letters that President Trump has actually been sending out to sending out to trading to partners, there signal that we are going to give you this much in terms of the tariff, but we are willing to maintain cordial trade relations between the two countries. So in a way that just says I'm willing to talk. So that's why markets have now just shifted to focusing on fundamentals and basic growth that's coming out of the market, such that we're seeing the Dow Jones Industrial Average, they're gaining some 217 points, the Nasdaq Composite Index gaining some 192 points, and the S&P 500 gaining some 37 points, right? And then when you move across the pond to Europe, you can see again that Europe is doing relatively well, with the London Stock Exchange them just moving closer to that 8,116 mark, just closer to that 9,000. It seems the UK is about to break records, and it just remains to be seen if we are going to hit that 9,000 mark. We're just 40 points shy of that. That's purely because just markets have again stopped looking at what President Trump is saying and just looking at those economic fundamentals and looking at earnings data that is coming out and looking at what companies are posting, so that they just make those decisions based off of that right now. I think this is a trend we're going to see until say August 1. And also we've had in Europe, when you look at the France, the CAC 40 there is edging closer to that 8,000 mark, something we've not seen in a very long while. And the Germans are holding steady there at that 24,000 mark. That's purely because we've seen the European Union and the US are just getting closer to closing a trade deal. So, but there are a bit of sticking points that still need to be addressed. And and as we see how that goes and plays out, markets are just optimistic of the fact that most likely we are going to get a deal, right? But we must understand that there is a bit of conflicting news coming out as well. On this other end, you have negotiations. On the other end, you have copper tariffs going up, and it's quite a lot. It's a bit difficult to balance right now. But when you move into Asia, the mood remains relatively stable there, with the Hang Seng, posting 24,000, staying above pre-pandemic levels, and the Shanghai Composite Index now at 3,500. $30,509 in terms of overall trade volumes on average. So that signals again those disparities within Asia, Lungelele, where we know that there is some sort of a deal between China and Japan. So right now we do know that the Japanese are hard at work and trying very hard to protect, more especially the automobile sector within the Japanese economy. But we know that's the sticking point. That's what President Trump wants actually out of that. And then when you come into South Africa, you will see that, the Johannesburg Stock Exchange again is becoming a bit bullish today. We are sitting on 98,009 in terms of all trade volumes. And we just again asking ourselves if we are going to get to that level of 100,000 in the South African Stock Exchange, something we've not seen in the 100 years history of this stock exchange. So we are just waiting to see, and it does show a bit of optimism in terms of overall market sentiments in when you're looking at the movements, and it's been supported by those price of those precious metals, and the fact that President Ramaphosa has come out to declare that they are still pursuing negotiations with the US, and most likely the crisis that is looming over the tariffs may not necessarily come to pass, and the other fundamentals continue to hold. We have not seen any movements in the Eswatini Stock Exchange. However, because of the bit of uncertainty, gold has actually closed a bit higher today, and Brent crude oil is somewhat trying to has returned to that 70 mark. That's because of that predicted supply outstripping demand in this coming month. So we should expect, gold to stay relatively at that level. And also the fact that we've seen President Trump saying that he is actually going to continue supplying weapons to Ukraine, and that somehow has sent some other shivers into the markets in terms of where we should expect the price of oil to go, because we're expecting that President Trump was going to loosen those sanctions on Russia, but right now the indications seem to be pointing in the opposite direction. The currency remains relatively strong today, Lungelele, with the Lilangeni trading at 17.73 and the euro trading at 20.80 for 20.80. The Lilangeni trading for 20.80 for one Lilangeni, and one Lilangeni trades for 8 Malangeni 25 Japanese yens. That's purely because we're seeing those movements in the general weakness of the dollar, and also, the surge in the prices of precious metals. Thank you.
Right, thank you, Mrs. Bia, for that analysis. We've come to the end of our program. Thank you for tuning in. This was the last episode this week. Catch us again next week, Monday at exactly 2 p.m. Have a lovely day. Enjoy the rest of your day.